Good evening. Welcome to AF Bennett, and this evening we're spending some time with everyone here going over what's known as the 5 love languages. I'm really excited to be here with you this evening because tonight we're going to explore what it takes for each and every one of us to communicate with somebody. There's going to be many different people in your life you're going to communicate with. And the cool thing about this whole thing, most of us have been walking around this skin for all these years, knowing certain things feel good, but not knowing why they feel good. Spending time exploring the depths of how we communicate to another person the words, I love you. More importantly, or equally as important, being able to hear what that sounds like when it comes our way. Now, how many of you guys would agree with me, talk is cheap? I'm a big guy that I want to see action. I want to see things that really count. I want to see the tangible stuff in life. But you'd be surprised. There are people in the world that all they want to hear is, oh my God, darling, you're the most beautiful thing, creature that's ever walked in the whole world. And that person's life completely lights up. To me, that wouldn't say too much. To another person, it might say the world. So this evening, we're going to talk about all the people that you love on a daily basis, every day, that you may not realize you're loving. Because the truth of the matter is, love is a verb and not so much a noun. See, the truth of the matter is, when we use the word love, we talk about it as if we're going to always have it between us and our significant other, a lover, let's just say. The truth of the matter is, we could be walking down the block and we could be showing love to, let's just say, the meter maid. Could be. So love comes out in many, many different ways. So here at AF Bennett, we do something called a love culture. And this love culture is really, really important to us. It's kind of the basis for what we do here when we talk about the 5 love languages. Would you guys be kind enough to get me one of those books? This is my lovely wife, Ann. Thank you, Ann. This is an incredible, incredible book. I'd like to say it changed my life, but it's dramatically impacted my life. 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Got to give it up to him because he's the guy who wrote the book. All I'm doing right now is being a messenger. So this book has been something that has been really, really very motivating to me. You can take a look at this book. I mean, would you say that's a pretty quick read? You could probably, if you were motivated, you probably read this book in an evening or two. But you know something? Love's not supposed to be hard. Love's supposed to be something that comes natural to us and something that flows. But here's the other side of love. Sometimes love is effort. Sometimes love takes discipline. Sometimes love requires us to be able to completely engage in a way that is out of our comfort zone. Think about that, our comfort zone. How many times have we heard our significant other say, you just don't get me? Like, really? I can't tell you how many guys and gals I've seen, right, do something for another person. It's in what's known as their own love language and present it to another human being, and that other person says, oh, geez, thanks. Great example. My wife comes home and brings me a beautiful gift. My wife loves to shop for me. In fact, everything I'm wearing is probably for my wife shopping for me. And she'll come home and she'll bring me a beautiful sweater. And I'll say, oh, geez, honey, that's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much. She'll come back a week later and say, the tags are still on it. Why aren't you wearing it? And it's not that I don't appreciate the gift, but that's not kind of the way I hear or interpret love. Interesting. So let's dig into who are the people we're going to be loving, what is the language that we're going to be loving them in, And what are those languages? Well, if we have a little beautiful pooch named Fido, we know Fido, all we need to do is give him a couple pets and feed him some good food, and Fido's liable to love us pretty well. Human beings are a little bit different. We're a little more complex, and it requires us to be able to communicate in these different realms. If you're here tonight with your significant other, raise your hand, please. Awesome. Congratulations. Thank you for making that investment. If you're here without your significant other, but you're looking to build your relationship, raise your hand. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for having the courage to be here this evening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody to open your heart wide up this evening and to be a great learner. The people that we affect. Who do we affect? Obviously, we go through that period of loving somebody and we spend that honeymoon phase with that other person and everything we do is right. You ever see it? Oh my God, she's just amazing. Oh my God, he's like the best thing. And then a year later, oh my God, he picks his nose. Oh my God, like he's always late. But it's really funny. In that honeymoon period, those first 6 months, you didn't see any of it. Because the way we're built is when we're going through that period of time, all we can see is that glowing response around that person. So what we wind up doing is we avoid the obvious, which is our love languages. Because at that moment in time, really what it really comes down to, it comes down to that person mirroring back to us that glowing love. Whether it's from physical attraction, or it's that couple things that person kind of engaged you on, in that honeymoon period, that's all you see. But here's what I think is really interesting. What I think is really interesting is we kind of think that honeymoon period is only with a lover. How about that new job you started? My God, you came home, you told everybody, the job is amazing, the people are absolutely extraordinary, I love everything about the job. A year later, this place is starting to really piss me off. Well, the truth of the matter is, we go through this phase not only with our significant others, we go through this phase with, truth be told, work. We go through it with friends. Oh my God, I love that new friend. You know that new friend you meet? That person is like so cool. Oh my God, he or she is so cool. They like the same things I like. We do all the coolest things together. Oh my God, we love doing all this, right? And then all of a sudden, like a year later, and you're like, yeah, they're cool. Right? It's the honeymoon phase. You see, what happens is, where the real growth happens inside of our spirits and our souls and our psyches is when we're able to go beyond the honeymoon phase, and then we're able to go to the next level. And for lack of a better word, roll up our sleeves and do the hard work. Here's where the hard work begins. Anybody here would like to just kind of throw this out for a moment? Do you think that the way you communicate with your kids, do you think that that's important? Yes. I got one. Everybody else think that's that important? Yes. I think everyone's hand should be up on that one, right? Well, how many times do we feel like we need to communicate to our kids in the way we feel things make sense to us? And I'm not saying good or bad, but the way we think things should make sense to us, however, we're expecting them to hear us because we're mom and dad. Not so much all the time. That's the truth. Because our children, the people we're responsible for, have their own love language. They interpret love very differently on a very, very individual level. I work with many people here at AF Bennett every single day. Everyone here I promise you, has their own love language. I have to be able to be cognizant and aware of every person I work with. Remember we said people you work with? Sometimes it's people you work with. Sometimes it's people you work for. Sometimes it's people you're responsible for. In my case, it's people I'm responsible for. And it's my responsibility to know each and every one of those individuals and know what their love language is. For instance, I got to be able to say, I know this particular person, if I do this, they're going to feel completely unloved and not appreciated. But if I do this, that person's going to say, hey, listen, I understand. I get that. I hear that loud and clear. So let's talk about some more other groups of people. We talked about your coworkers. We talked about your children. We talked about your significant other. Are there any other groups?
It could be objects too, like people with their cars and shoes.
Okay, I can see how people would probably have a little bit of a love affair with those inanimate objects. Parents, oh my goodness, parents are great, right? Because okay, you ready? Here it goes. I'm going to say it. I'm 53 years old. At 53 years old, whenever I'm around dad or mom, I think for some reason, some distorted level, that they should be playing to me. Like they owe me something. You brought me into the world. Entertain me. The truth of the matter is, so much of the time, we're not really recognizing that even the people that are above us, or I don't want to use the word above us, or responsible for us, that could be, guess what? It could be a manager at work. It could be a mom or dad. It could be many different people. But, sometimes we forget that we have to be able to communicate to that individual in their love language so that that individual will feel loved and cared for. And let me tell you something. I want to share this with you. When a person feels loved and cared for, do you get more or less out of that person?
More.
Now, should we love and care for people just because we want to get things out of them? No, because that was called manipulation. Okay? But what we should do is we should love and care for people around us because we know that those individuals need to have their supply filled up. Anyone ever hear the expression, it's lonely at the top? Whether you agree with a president's politics or not, I'm telling you one thing. Here's something really, really interesting. They have interviewed leaders of countries, and every single one always says, you cannot believe the lonely life I live. Because their options become smaller, and what happens is they have to be responsible for more people. So I'm going to challenge everyone here today. I'm going to challenge you to say love and how we speak love and how we communicate love and what that language is like sometimes goes, you ready? Up and down, side to side, and criss and cross. Because everyone likes to feel love. Because love is a what? A verb. It's an action. It's something that actually happens. So, the one thing I want to share that would really, really put the icing on top of that would be love intentionally. Do things with premeditated, I'm going to be conscious of delivering what that other person needs. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, I feel unloved, I feel unappreciated, or I feel like people just don't get me. And the truth of the matter is, sometimes that's true because they're surrounding themselves with people who are not making that effort or who don't know how to do it. Now, what's really interesting is there's 5 different love languages. I'm going to start with the first one. I put them down over here on a piece of paper so I wouldn't forget them. No, I'm only kidding. But those 5 love languages, and if I can have that book over here, inside here, it goes through each and every one of these love languages. And on the back over here, it's probably too small for you to see, but I have a little present we're going to be giving you. Everyone's going to get one of these books when you guys leave tonight on us. Okay? But the first thing we have over here in these love languages is something called words of affirmation. Now, when I say words of affirmation, I would ask you and I would challenge you, what does that mean to you? Guess what? There's some people that have one love language. Most people have two main love languages on how they interpret and hear love. Some people have three, not too many. Some people have one, but majority of people have two main ones in how they hear the word love. So let's start with the words. And as I do this, as I start with words of affirmation, as I go through each one and give you definitions and give you understandings and examples, I'm going to ask you guys to do something. I'm going to ask you guys to say, is that me? Do I fit into that category? But I'm also going to ask you to do one more thing. Think of your significant other. Is that he or she's category? Is that my child's category? Is that my boss's category? Who is that? So I want you guys to be an active audience thinking. So words of affirmation, it's a love language. Now, interesting, it's one of my love languages. Good example, words of affirmation. If you guys find yourself, when a person comes over to you and pays you an honest compliment, like someone might come over to you and say, you dress so beautifully. I always love the accessories you use. Now, that might mean to you, oh my God, that's really, that's great. You might say, yeah, cool. But once again, words of affirmation are really important, but if they're true. Because for a person who values words of affirmation, if you come off false, placating, or phony, that person, it's actually going to be a weapon against them. Now, a person doesn't care about words of affirmation. You can walk over, oh my God, I love your eye makeup. Not you, but anyway. I love your eye makeup. And that person might go, oh, that's nice. Cool. Now, guess what? That would be not true, or it might be true, but if it's not important to that person, it didn't matter. So words of affirmation, how does that work? Guess what? You might be able to turn around. You know what one of the most beautiful things for me is? If you go in my office, I have a pegboard in my office. And every time I work with one of my team here, and they send me a note or something that's really words of affirmation affirming me, I don't throw that away. It's so precious to me. I take it and put it on my board. I have notes up there from like 10 years ago. I won't take them down because to me, it's important. But it's only important to me when it's true. So, words of affirmation. Hey, you know something? You're really great. You did really, really well on that test. You're so smart. To a person. Now, I don't know too many people would hear that and say and shirk it off like, oh my God, that was the most disrespectful thing I've ever heard in my life. Most people can hear words of affirmation and say, yeah, that was kind of cool. That felt good. But to some people, it's going to mean the world. So words of affirmation are just that. Words of affirmation that affirm another human being. Here's some examples. I love it when I hear a kid go to school, right? And they open up their lunch and they all go through that little brown paper bag and they pull out their lunch and they see a little post-it and says, Dear Johnny, have the most fabulous day. You're the best son and I'm so happy that you're in my life. There may be some little Johnnies out there that go, oh my God, Mommy loves me. And then all of a sudden the rest of the day is amazing. So words of affirmation can be verbal. Words of affirmation could be something that's texted. Words of affirmation could be something that is written. Someone gets a letter. If you're in this room and someone sends you a handwritten letter, I'm not talking about a typed up letter. I'm not talking about an email. I'm talking about someone took the time to actually pen a letter and send it to you. If you're the type of person who reads it real slow and wants to milk every morsel out of that letter, then you might be words of affirmation. Make sense? Okay. Physical touch. Now, it's really interesting. My wife walked in here today, right? And I was getting ready to go on camera. She walked over to me and she came over to me and she started to like play with my shirt. My first reaction was, leave me alone. Now, if I was physical touch, I might be like, oh yeah, and that side too. Did you see that over there? How about this? Is this good? Right? I might have done that. But physical touch is not on my highest way of saying love, I love you. Which is really interesting is because you could, this is really interesting because you could, doesn't happen often, but you could interpret love as another person showing you love or compassion and touching you in a very positive, beautiful way. And not really present that to other human beings. Doesn't happen often, but it happens. Conversely, myself, I don't love come over, and all that huggy stuff. But if you ask the people I work with, I'm always grabbing people and hugging them because I'm showing that love that way, which is pretty interesting. But that's more of an exception than a rule. Does that make sense to everybody?
Kind of confusing.
It is confusing, isn't it? Because
you're being touched anyway, even if you're hugging someone.
Yeah, that's true.
I see it that way. I see it that you don't need affection, but you give it. Does that make any sense?
Sometimes, yes. But thank you.
It's here in person.
Yes.
I've seen it from the moment I've seen you. You don't need to have that affection, but I see you very.
I am.
This alone
Yes.
is what you're doing. Teaching
is giving out love. So I would say this, that physical touch, sometimes you can brighten somebody's life up by simply holding their hand. Now, you may not think that's a big deal, but to my wife, if I go over to my wife and I put my arm around my wife and I hold her hand, it was like I walked into the house and I gave her a dozen roses. That was super important to her. So we have to now, could you do that with your boss? Can't walk over and say, can we hold hands? Probably not. But you know something? Your boss might appreciate something like this. Hey, thanks for that day off. I really appreciate that. Tap on the shoulder. To a person, that's physical touch. It doesn't necessarily always have to be that warm, gushy kind of stuff. Physical touch has many different ways it displays itself. So, what about gifts? How many of you guys like gifts? You like gifts? All right. Well, let me share about with the love language of gifts. Sometimes you can come home or go to some place and give somebody a gift, and that person, that is over the top incredible. They value that gift. It's like, it could be the smallest thing, a little keychain. Oh, thank you so much. That's amazing. You made my day. But you know something? To another person, they're happy to have it. They're grateful to have it. But it's not that important, gifts. So, one of the biggest holidays where people get gifts is Christmas, right? I told you the story, right, about me getting a sweater and not opening it up for a week. I'll give an example. My wife and my son, Christmas morning, they can't get up early enough. All they want to do is go downstairs and rifle through the stuff and open up every gift because it means so much to them. Me, I open my Christmas gifts on New Year's Eve. I open the ones that are important, but there's a whole bunch of other ancillary ones, and you might think that's insensitive, especially if you're a person who values gifts. But for me, gifts are not that important. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Everyone's got that different place. So when we take a look at each and every one of these chapters, if we go through this book, we're going to see different chapters. And in this book, you have different chapters on different gifts. It's a handbook. Look at it as something where if you looked at the back of this book and you saw all the different things, you might say to yourself, If I go to that thing, I can go to that chapter and I can get a quick reference. How many of you guys enjoy spending time with the people you care about and love? Well, how about this? There are people that rather not get a gift, rather not you tell me how wonderful I am, rather not say, don't tell me about all this wonderful stuff, but you know something? Carve out time. Don't spend time with your buddies. Tell me that I made time for us this afternoon to go to the park and I decided that it would be really cool if I made you lunch and we just kind of sat down and talked about things and just kind of hung out and just be. To some people, that's really important. Time well spent together is really, really important to some people. Now, to me, just once again, I keep referencing myself. For me, quality time is very important. You want to say, if you want to say to me, I love you, you simply carve out some time and say, hey, can we hang out? I want to be with you. You're valuable to me. And then I will say, oh my God, really me? Now, there's one more to make our 5. And the one more to make our 5 is something called acts of service. How many of you guys would much rather a person that you're significantly involved with, it could be your significant other, it could be your coworker, it could be your child, it could be anybody, that person turns around and does something for you that you don't normally want to do, does that speak volumes to you? To you. I'll give you an example. If I turn around, my wife comes down the kitchen and I have all of the dishes clean and I have the kitchen straightened out and she's walking downstairs, to her, I said to her, you are the most amazing woman in the whole world and I love you and I value you. I could not even say one word. Sometimes it's as simple as, you know something? Don't worry about it. To a person who it's acts of service. So let's say you had a manager that was acts of service, right? Now I'm not saying you should work and not get paid, but let's just say that person was particularly having a hard time. And that person's love language was acts of service. Hey, you know something? I'm going to hang out with you. I'm going to stay with you and help you break down because I know everyone's leaving and you're going to be here left alone holding the bag and I'm going to help you a little bit. You want to know something? To a person like me, that told me I love you. And that means a lot. Everyone's different. So what is it for you? I asked you in the beginning of this to think about who you would be communicating to with your love languages. I asked you to say, what is yours, or try to identify yours. And I also said, try to identify an important person or significant other in your life. I'm going to take a couple moments right now, and I'm going to open this up to statements. Just don't tell me I suck. Because we'll edit it anyway. But seriously, I'm going to open this up. So if you guys want to share with what you think your love language is, please, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice loud enough for the microphones to pick it up. But who would like to share? Did anyone realize what their love language? Please.
So I want to say, notice that when you're younger, you may have a different love language, like maybe instead of touch. And as you get older, just me in general, as you get older, I know it's like a quality time. You value that more.
How about for you? What?
Well, I notice like I spend more time with my parents now, and I'm like, they're getting older, people aren't here forever, so I'm noticing the quality time. My grandmother, the same thing. Even with my significant other, I'm not more a touchy-feely person anymore as I was when I was maybe in my 20s. Now it's more like quality time.
So you're saying your love language is quality time, how you communicate it. So now I'm going to challenge you with one next question. How does it get communicated to you? Is it quality time?
You mean in the giving back?
In the giving back to you? That makes your heart feel full?
Yeah, when you think about it, because not even to focus on like the bad stuff, but for instance, I also went through a divorce, and I noticed one of the main reasons was because he was a workaholic. So you weren't giving that time gifts, but that did nothing for me.
Interesting. Who else would like to share what you think your love language is? Please.
I'm definitely acts of service. So your example of like doing the kitchen and the dishes, that would be my dream day. Like literally, that would be my dream day. So for me, I know definitely it's always been acts of service.
So here's my question to you. How do you communicate? Do you communicate that same thing in acts of service? Do you find yourself when you want to show somebody that you care about them, that you go out of your way, I bake them cookies, I do this, I clean their car, whatever it might be? Well, what is it for you?
Yeah, I would say I'm kind of acts of service.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Good answer. Well, now we have you on the hot seat. What would you say? What would you say you're at? Your You don't know. But you're gonna figure it out by the end of the night, I'm sure. I like that. That doesn't sound like a man that was dragged here at all.
I'd say he's more of like affirmation. Because I noticed that he responds more to when I like, give him compliments. Like, he'll say to me, "Babe, I did this," and it's sort of like a pause. And if I don't say anything, I could see the disappointment in his face.
Okay.
And so I know that he's somewhat affirmation.
Okay. So you figured it out already.
Yeah, that's kind of her acts of service, though.
Yeah.
I do this. I say, "Yo, I did this." Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So anybody else, will you please share, nice and loud,
Not about my significant other, it's about my daughter.
about your daughter.
I'd rather not get any gifts. Every card she gave me, every little knick-knack, she's 26, I still have. That means the world to me. That tells me that she loves me. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, I'm going to put it right back to you.
Okay.
So you know how you get interpreted. So how do you speak to Marie?
Very good, I think. I tell her I love her every day.
So you use words of affirmation? So let me ask you a question, Marie. When people use words of affirmation, things that lift you up, words that make you feel appreciated, does that fill your well all the way up, or is it just a nice to have?
It's nice to have.
It's a nice to have. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to you. What is it that says, out of all the 5 love languages, what is it that says to you the most, I love you, Marie?
I think it's the last one you mentioned, like doing acts of kindness, was it? Or
Acts of service.
acts of service? I think that one, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Who else would like to share?
I have to say all of the above, except for the gifts, unless it's like something sentimental or like handmade or something. But other than that, I feel like all of the above.
All of the above. So you have many going on right now. Cool. Who else would like to share? Who else has something that's jumping out at them that says, this is how I express love or how I receive love? Do you have something else, please?
Yes, I think I'm too pushy with her. Like, she's 26 years old, and maybe I could get your advice on
Oh my God, my advice.
She's 26, she's married, but I don't care every night, and that proves to me that I'm on her mind, and I want her just to tell me she's home safe every night. And people tell me she's a grown woman. I love her husband, but I don't know if he's sleeping, and I need to know that my daughter is home.
Got it. So that sounds like just a caring mom.
I don't
So-
think that makes a difference. I'm 40 and my mom still calls me all the time to find out if I made it home.
Yes.
Or, it doesn't matter.
It's normal, thank you.
It's normal.
Because some people, like my sister told me, oh my gosh, she's 25, that must humiliate her.
No. And I
So-
always call my mom and I tell her I don't find it humiliating.
That's awesome. So let me put it out to you guys one more way. Can anybody think of a change you would do right now when communicating with that person? Could be anybody that you'd make a request of that person to let them know how you need to be loved. Because we could go around expecting people to figure out how we're going to get loved. I walk straight up to my wife. Write me hand notes, say nice things to me, and do something nice for me once in a while. And I promise you, I'm going to feel super loved. And she might turn around and say, oh, really? I didn't know that. Because here's what's really interesting. Guess what? Most of us, okay, you ready? Here's the bombshell. I'm going to end it with this. So be listening and listen well. Here's the bombshell. Most of us communicate to that other person in our love language and not theirs. And we get so frustrated why they're not receiving it. So I will end with this. Learn their love language and communicate in their love language, not just yours. Now, you might be real lucky. I know 2 couples. They have the same love language. For them, it's just like nothing but one just big happy fla la 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 la. And I hate them. But for the rest of us, we're going to have to work a little bit. What do you think? Guys, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.